Welcome here to the latest edition of The Light Between Us, an exclusive piece of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, brought to you by Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, the entire team at both of these wonderful locations, owned and operated by Jimmer Sikowski. My guest today that we are spotlighting the story of here in this edition of The Light Between Us is Peter Schultz. Peter, how are you?
Very good. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
I know that you have a little bit of a different story
Yes.
of how you merged with Chick-fil-A, and I would love for you to share kind of your background a little bit and what you were doing before you came to Chick-fil-A.
Sure. I was in education for about 30 years, mostly as an administrator, and in a number of states. More than 20 years as a principal, assistant principal for 3 years, and 19 as a principal. So I've been really involved in education for a long time, and was in Georgia as a school principal down there, and a few of my children, 3 in particular, became very involved and engaged in working at Chick-fil-A down there, and had a wonderful experience. And of course, I've had a wonderful experience as a guest of Chick-fil-A, and then as a parent, watching the way my children were absolutely just really treated with such a high regard, and really growth and a true spirit of helping them along as young people. So I've already had that positive experience. So I had an opportunity a little over a year and a half ago to be a part of the other Chick-fil-A of this operator. The same operator had two restaurants. He has 2 restaurants, and so I was very fortunate to work over there in Atlanta, and got a wonderful experience with Chick-fil-A. So it was kind of a dual experience, and I really enjoyed it. So that was my touch point with Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And then I took a position as a principal up in Connecticut at a Catholic school in Connecticut, and we could literally not find housing. So with that dilemma before us, I really returned to the concept of Chick-fil-A, reached out to Jimmer here, and then the rest is history. So,
How did you connect with Jimmer? What came about to reach out to him specifically?
well, I was very aware that there was Chick-fil-A in Syracuse. A lot of our family, my wife and our family, both of our families are from the Syracuse area. So that was a logical, I guess, connection. Really, when we left Georgia, was to get closer to family. We've been in Georgia for 7 years, and so we thought, well, coming up to Connecticut was a good opportunity. And when that didn't seem to be working out due to completely logic where we were going to live,
Yeah.
we said, okay, let's try to regroup. And family was always and is always important to us. So we said, okay, let's go back to Syracuse. So with that in mind, and then the timing of the year, and then just the desire to work for Chick-fil-A again, I really felt compelled to do this. So I reached out to here at the Chick-fil-A and spoke to Josh Halen, who helped me get connected with Jimmer here. And then I came over to meet with Jimmer and talked about what I'd like to do and the opportunity of coming over there. And it's been a beautiful fit.
How do you go from working in education and being a principal to finding your way to Chick-fil-A?
It really is. It's a very unique experience, and it's very interesting because you go from the leader making decisions and directing to being directed in a way.
Yeah.
One of the great things that had happened is I worked both front of house and back of house here, worked every position, and really followed the lead of the leaders here. And it's a wonderful experience because it's humbling.
Yeah.
In the sense you're going to work positions all over, but also what's most amazing, which is not surprising to me, is how I was treated. And I saw all around me tremendous respect, support, dignity. All of those things came about, and I was a recipient of that coming in. So I can't speak enough about the people, this team here at Chick-fil-A, and how I was treated in that regard, and how I was taught, because that was part of the experience, is really to bring forward, to learn about the business, to learn about what goes on at Chick-fil-A, with the ultimate goal of working and training, something that I had done for many years, working with teachers and helping them grow and helping them set goals and go forward. So there was a connection there to look at not just coming to work at Chick-fil-A, but then eventually to help out with training.
From being a teacher to being taught,
Yes.
how do you navigate that world and almost humble yourself?
You do. It really is a lot of humility, because you're there. You have to do the position. You are there, and you have to work on the nuggets in the back of the house for the next 3 hours, and you have to do it, and you have to do it efficiently and accurately. So it's really quite an act of, and I'm not saying about myself, but it definitely was a humbling act in the sense of just to go from a different position to that position. And yeah, it's so worthwhile. It was, I love still going back and doing that, even though I'm doing more training now. I love getting on the line or working in the front, helping out where I can. So it was such a worthwhile, amazing experience. So it's really just a matter of understanding that part of this process in making this transition is really to know the business, to know Chick-fil-A, and I learned it quite well from those around me.
Are there any parallels from what you had done and in training and helping teachers and kind of what you were looking for as the proper model of the team that you wanted? Are there similarities between that and being a team member at Chick-fil-A?
Absolutely. I think like in education, you are with the team. Like, so there's a combination factor. So working with teachers and the professional staff is very similar to the adults, to the individuals, here, that there's like two groups. There's the over 20 and the under 20. And so I did both, really, in the schools I was in. I worked with staff and teachers, setting goals and working with them and helping support where I could. Those habits, those skills also carried over with the kids, the young people, and I've had that opportunity too. So it's been a beautiful blend here to have all ages, to work with a whole bunch of varieties. It's something that I did as an administrator and as a teacher as well, but most recently as an administrator. So it did fit very well because it really comes down to how I've always seen myself as I've tried to strive to be a servant leader. And so it wasn't about the position. And I think that may be another reason why the transition was so easy for me, or easier, was because I never saw the position as a principal as an ego thing.
Yeah.
It's just that I was given that authority. It made me no better than you. Many times I wasn't. But the reality of it is that it gave me authority, so I had to use that with wisdom and prudence. So that was part of it too. That was my philosophy as a servant leader. So coming here in the transition, very similar in the idea of how can I help you. Right now, if anybody needs something, I don't care, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Someone in the back of the house needs me to help, I'll do it. I don't care. I love it. I don't care what the position is, I'll do it. So I really enjoy that continuation of something I've done really a lot of my career.
Here with Peter Schultz, training director at Chick-fil-A Cicero, and here inside of the Light Between Us on Wake Up Call today in Tortora. Leadership is something that you've been around for so long and you've had to learn, grow, evolve. And there's another piece that we do with Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay called LEAD, and it's an acronym for Learn, Evolve, Ad-lib, and Deliver. And so we're always looking at learning, because if you're not learning, to me, you're not growing.
Right.
Evolving with that.
Right.
Ad-libbing, because nothing ever goes completely as planned.
True.
And then delivering on the promises you've given to yourself, to others, and to God.
Right.
So how would you define leadership?
That's a good place. I mean, you've really kind of identified a lot of it. I'll tell you, a lot of leadership is your example, your role modeling. When you're working with people, the very first thing I believe is important is how you treat them. It really doesn't matter what kind of experience and expertise you have if you can't gain the respect and trust of those around you. It really means nothing. That was a common theme I would talk with teachers about, is I could come up with 10 different ways to become a better teacher. But if I'm not the person that you trust to help facilitate it, it's going to lose a lot of value. So as a leader, I think one of the first places you look to is gaining trust. And on that point about delivery, that's very important. Like, not just saying something, but doing it. And if you can't do it, you say that as well. And that was a very important part of my experience. And even now, like, you have to be sure that what you can do it. And if you can't, you say that. So I think in leadership, you always start with how you treat people, how you respect them, give them dignity, which is perfect. This is why, again, Chick-fil-A is such a winner, and why it's such a fit for me, because everything that Chick-fil-A believes in, a mission and the vision, is exactly how I see it. How we treat others is everything. So as a leader, that's a big deal. The experience and the other things will come in it. And I've always even seen that as a leader, that it's also facilitating. A lot of times when I set goals, when I work with individuals, it's really trying to see where they're at and reach them and then help them get there. It's not all about thou shalt, but it's more of how can we do this together. And I've always viewed that. And I've had a lot of good examples, people over me, particularly principals, who helped me with that and really gave me a good example of how you do treat people and helping them grow. And you made an interesting point about growing and learning. It's a very true statement that if you're at the same spot you are professionally, spiritually, a year later you've stepped back. You always have to, we really do believe, and I've always believed in being a lifelong learner. that you can always learn no matter who you are. And that really has driven me. So I think the leadership is about gaining the respect and trust of others by your example, taking care of people, just being good to them. Again, everything I'm saying is exactly what happens at Chick-fil-A every single day. It's a beautiful expectation of ours. That's how we work with each other and with our guests. So it really is a beautiful thing to be a part of.
Yeah, and I appreciate, everything we've gotten to talk about today because it's positive. And
Right.
that's the thing about, really everything that we do with anything that I touch is I want it to help somebody,
Right.
move somebody forward.
That's right.
Help me go forward, help us all go forward. And seeing, people grow and learn and continuously, like you said, like invent yourself, elevate yourself, push yourself.
Right.
So what's fun about all this for you?
Well, first of all, the people we work with here are amazing. That I work with. Oh my gosh, it's not even really work. It's such an enjoyable thing. Although there's a lot of work though. Don't misunderstand me. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. This is not for anybody unless you have a good work ethic. You have to be of a high level of work ethic here to be successful. But the people that are here are in the same direction and they believe in the same things and the sense of how we treat each other. And they're a lot of fun. It is so enjoyable. Everybody that I come into contact with is just an amazing person. Really, and I sincerely mean that. It's like the most amazing thing to be around, and that whenever I come into contact with anyone at our restaurants, it's just, these are amazing people. And so I consider that a blessing. Like it's a blessing for me to be here with them.
Yeah.
That I can actually enjoy their company and listen to them, and the sense of humor and the hard work. That's one thing that's very clear to me. I learned that both back of house, front of house, is that. And I started at Cicero, but I also see at Clay because I go back and forth now. We work hard. Chick-fil-A works hard, and I'm so impressed with hard work. It's just amazing to me. I have such a great respect for hard work. I grew up with my being second oldest of 13. We learned to work hard, and we learned to share. And I think those are things that I see constantly here, and it's so impressive. So it's a lot of fun just to be around them. We've got some people who are just amazing workers with amazing sense of humor, and yet. And another thing I really enjoy too, it may not be the word fun, but it's really important. I can't tell how many times I'll be on the front or I'll be even outside and I'll be listening to fellow team members out there talking to our guests. It's unbelievable how they talk to them, how kind they are to them, our team members. And I'm not saying it with pride, I'm just saying it's a joy to hear a level of kindness that's being pushed out there and put upon and given to our guests.
You brought it up, and I find God works in very purposeful ways.
Absolutely.
And one of the ways that God always talks to me is through numbers. And so my grandfather, my mom's dad, his favorite number's 13.
Oh, really?
He passed on when I was 6.
Oh, wow.
So his number's 13, my number's 21. 13, 21, 21, 13, and a lot of times, more often, 213, the bonding of the two, shows up all throughout my life. You just said you're the second of 13.
Right.
And yesterday I went to a baseball game with my dad and we sat in section 213.
That's awesome.
So
that's fantastic. I love it.
It's funny how that works out,
Yeah.
but you had led into it and I wanted to get your thoughts on this.
Sure.
I am an only child, and growing up, now I started working when I was 10. I had my first job at 14. But when you tell someone you're an only child, they're like, oh, you're spoiled, you get everything you want. That's that first thing. And I was like, no, I said, honestly, I got an allowance twice in my life for a couple months maybe at a time, and that was it. It was like, you want money, you go mow the lawn.
That's right.
But I wanted to have siblings, and by the grace of God, a lot of my friends have not only become my family, but they've made me Uncle Dan to their kids.
Right. That's awesome.
But you are one of 13.
Correct.
Bring me into, I want you to let us be a fly on the wall in your household.
It's very possible this could be your longest podcast in the your entire career. So I'll try to shorten it so not to do that. But no, it's really amazing. I mean, it's funny. The numbers do not matter. It's what you're brought up under and what you're taught. The numbers don't matter whether it's 1 or 13. There's no question there's a difference of 13 just for the sheer number of the vehicle. We have a 15 passenger van. That's just the way it is. So that's one market difference that you'll see. But I think when I look at the growth or being a family that size, I never realized this till later. But when my parents had the first 6 of us, they had a 5-year-old, 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 2-year-old, 1-year-old, and newborn. And now as a parent, I understand a lot more than I did when I was a kid and what that meant. But my parents always gave the example of hard work and perseverance in prayer. We prayed every night. And it's really important about praying together as a family. That's what we were brought up on. So that was very powerful to us, the work ethic. And one thing you learned also, and I still teach my own children this, is very important, is it's all about family. You take care of each other. You look out for each other, right? You stay together. I think that's really important. And I think that those are values that really do work for success, work for spiritual strength, work for a whole bunch of things, leading you in the right direction. So there was a lot of sacrifice in my family. We shared everything. Every now and then we would go out to eat like at a Burger King or something. There was no Chick-fil-A in our town, so that's not a plug for Burger King.
Yeah.
But
Understood.
But we definitely, we share even that.
Yeah.
Like you'd share the fries and you'd share the beverage, there as well. And it's funny, a lot of times you would hear more no's than yeses on things because we couldn't afford it. But when you look back on it, those no's were tremendously valuable because it taught you about discipline and about what matters, right? And I think that's what I've tried to pass along to my own children in our family. My wife and I have really tried to bring the very same principles that we were both brought up on. The idea of taking care of our family, praying together, giving honor to God, and doing the very best we can. And if we make mistakes, we seek forgiveness and go forward. That was another thing. That's something that we've, growing up in a family like that, we're very imperfect, but we're still connected and still close because we forgive one another. You learn to take care of each other. You don't let grudges get in there. And I think, so we're very imperfect. Let me say that very clear. But we also know through the example of God and the expectation of, forgiving one another, that we try to follow that. I think that makes all the difference in the world.
When you have, like you said, you learn that discipline and to appreciate things because you didn't have, and even with money, 13's a lot to take care of.
It is.
So what are the best things that your parents have left you with? When you look at those foundational pillars, what are they?
Without a doubt, faith. My mom and dad were Catholic Christians, and we've been taught to love the Lord, love our faith, love one another. I think that's the first thing that comes to mind, is that it was just an understanding that we went to church, that we prayed together. It wasn't anything that other than that. That's what we do as a family, and it's really number one. Like, there were always a priority. Like when we would pray together at night, it was always a priority that it would happen, right? It was not, no matter what time. And I think that was important. So my parents gave the example to us that faith in God was number one.
Yeah.
That's probably the first thing I can say that comes to mind, because they both practiced it and they both believe it, thanks be to God, and that has passed along to us. So I tell you, I can't say enough about that. And so that comes to my mind about faith, and really that leads out to everything else, I think, but really that's where it started for us.
And that faith in a world today where sometimes when you love God and you want to talk, you feel there's people that feel like they have to whisper or hide or kind of poke out and say, is everybody okay if I say this?
Right.
I've always been a person where I'm like, God, if I don't love you openly, publicly, privately, there's something wrong with
That's
me.
right. I agree.
So living in today's world, how do you describe being open and free and not shying away from your faith?
It's not easy. I'm not going to pretend it is. I'm not going to pretend that it would be easy for me to do that. I try my best to do it by my examples.
Yeah.
And you are always challenged in today's world to be patient. Yeah. And I don't always do that, but I try. And so it's really our example. Now I'm always going to refer back to Chick-fil-A, because this is why it's such a beautiful thing. We have guests coming to us every single day who have their own stories. Some it's very positive, some very heavy. And this is an opportunity for us to, by our very actions, to be Christ-like, to be good to them, to be kind to them. So notice that you can do all that without even mentioning God, although many times people will talk to me about their faith and we'll talk together. But just that alone, that example, is a way to evangelize about the goodness of God himself. But there's no question, it is a challenge. But to what you just said kind of gets to me as well, and that is, it really is about loving one another. That's a priority. And where does that come from? Well, yes, you and I have it, but it's really ultimately from God, because he loves us perfectly. The imperfect people that we are. And we're trying to love each other perfectly, but it's really hard to do that. So I think it's a real challenge to do that in this world. It's interesting, there was a person that she was a story part that we got this through Chick-fil-A. She's a Chick-fil-A worker. I don't know if it's in Georgia or where. She was talking about, she's an older woman. She welcomes people into the restaurant.
Yeah.
And she says, we live in such a hostile world that we at Chick-fil-A have an opportunity to spread kindness. You know, on our board on the other side there, it says kindness matters. Well, it does.
Yeah.
And people want that. Of all faiths, all walks of life, it doesn't matter. They want kindness. We all do. And so I think that's part of it too. But we do have to be unafraid to speak about where it comes from. Because if it's just by itself, it doesn't have any strength. But when it's backed up by God himself, then we know it has strength.
Well, and when I got to do a retreat, it's called Surge. When I did that with Marywood University, where I went to school, Catholic University,
Yes.
Catholic as well.
Yes.
And we went on this retreat, and you either picked or they picked for you, and they said to me, we'd like you to do the talk on God's love.
Right.
And what I realized is God is love and love is God. So if you don't believe in God, but you love something, you actually do.
Right.
And I tell people that all the time, and I said that's kind of how I take away the lack of faith or atheism or whatever, agnostic, is I say, well, do you love your kids?
That's right.
Do you love your wife? Do you love your job?
Right.
Well, then you have God in your life, whether or not you know you do.
That's right.
Because, that's where love comes from.
That's right.
And that's where the goodness comes from.
That's right.
And I've always been baffled by people to push God away, because if you're pushing God away, it's like somebody's giving you a cold glass of water on a hot day, and you going,
No,
no,
thanks.
I'm thirsty,
That's right,
but I don't want it.
Exactly.
And I've never understood it. I said it's not an FU, it's an I love you.
Right.
And to shy away from it, I think is just more of a sign of people maybe feeling something inside of themselves that's not okay or not right, or there's some pain. Normally it comes from my mom died, or there's cancer, or this happened or that happened, so I have to blame somebody for it.
Exactly.
And and I know there's a lot of questions that we can't answer, but doing this life without God, I wouldn't recommend it, I guess I would say.
And the hope that comes from what you just described, everything you just said now is so hopeful. It has so much hope in it, and I think that's the key too, is that we need to help our world out. Like the pandemic and everything really crushed a lot of people for a variety of reasons, and now we have this opportunity, freeing up and being more open, to give more hope, to be examples to others. And I think that's really, really important, because I think sometimes people need more hope, as you're about to get stung on camera. But that's okay. You'll keep going because you believe in journalism. So.
I do. So
I'll get stung now, but go ahead.
You're okay. The final point that I don't want to miss here, Jim Rusakowski,
Yes.
just what he's been as a
gosh.
fearless leader.
Oh, he's been unbelievable. And look at him. First of all, his example, and he is a true Christian man, and he has been amazing to me, and supporting me and guiding me, providing me with good support and insight. His example to all of us, as he battles. He is a real fighter, and that's an example to us all. He prays. He's just a solid man, solid leader, solid person. And again, that's what you follow. Like, it goes back to the example of the person. Like, you're going to follow people that set that example, and he does. The word for Jim, there's many words for him, but he's quite authentic.
Yeah.
He's the real deal.
Yeah.
And it's another blessing to be here. That goes back to where he said, this is not an accident. I'm not here for an accident. I've told him that more than once, because I'm not the likely candidate to come into Chick-fil-A after 30 years in education and so forth. But it just worked out that way, and there is a reason.
Yeah.
And I know we pray for each other and help each other where we can, and I just consider it a blessing. So he's amazing, and he really is a leader to look up to by the way he speaks, but also by the way he acts.
And you've been so great to share so much of yourself that there's a thing on my show on Wake Up Call called Rapid Fire, where I allow the person I'm speaking to flip the script here, so you can ask me a couple questions, anything you want.
Well, I'd love to know what brings you to this world of journalism where you do interview people. What is what drew you to that? What gave you that desire to do this, to do that, and to work? Like you were talking about sports as well.
Yeah.
What brought you to that? 'Cause that's always intriguing to me.
Well, ever since I was 5. Well, really my whole life. I've always had a big imagination, but I remember being 5 years old and my dad's word processor, which was like a typewriter with a little touch screen. Right. And I would get up there on a Saturday morning, and he'd put it on really heavy. He'd put it on the desk and turn it on, and I would just write stories.
Nice.
And I always loved bringing people together. And on my ring from Marywood, there's a feather pen.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
And there's a feather pen that I put on here. You don't see it here.
It's awesome.
And it's there because whether I'm working on music and writing songs or screenwriting or doing something for my show or stand-up comedy writing, everything is telling a story.
Exactly.
And every story is meant to bring people together.
Right.
And so there's different angles and ways to do it, but I always want to see people be joyful, see people deal with things. I mean, even with the stand-up comedy, it's like, yeah, you go to places, but it's meant to show people, hey, we all go through stuff that's hard.
Right.
I'm going to teach you how to laugh about it,
Right.
as opposed to be pushed down about it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I don't know, I've always been a storyteller. I love spreading love. I love bringing people together, and I don't know, I just feel like God always wanted me. I just always had this belief that by the time I'm done, most of this world will have some interaction with me,
Right.
which can help them have some interaction with Him.
Right. That's awesome.
I just want
That's a
people to
great
know
mission.
God,
Yep.
know love, and know that there's somebody out there that wants to see you happy. I mean, basically to be the voice in the darkness that I would need to hear.
Exactly. Yeah, and we need, and in journalism and in the world in general, we need more of that. It's funny how, like, it's like more needed now than it was, say, maybe 60 years ago or something. It's like, I feel like we're I say the same thing about Chick-fil-A, but what you're doing as well. We just need more of this than ever. People need to hear this message of goodness and kindness, because every single person has intrinsic value. Everyone has value. You're valuable. You're loved by God. I mean, come on. And I think it's amazing. But is there a question for you? Is there something like, was there in your? Oh, sorry, as you get stunned. Let's ask a few more questions. We can see, so everybody can see if he really does get stunned here on the camera. But no, one more question about the spiritual component. Was there something in your life that, maybe not a defining point, but a point where you really, it clicked? This, what you just described, doesn't happen by accident. It's not a month-old conversation. It's not something you've done.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've done a large part of your life. Was there a moment or moments in which you just said, this is where I really want to go, related to the faith? Not necessarily about journalism,
Yeah.
but, or interviews and things like that, but what about, was there something in your faith that clicked as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had a strong faith, and it's been shaken. When my grandfathers both passed away in 92 when I was 6, it was shaken the most. I didn't hate God. I didn't turn completely away. I was mad.
Yeah.
And I, 30 years later, can tell you the exact daydream that I had about my grandfather's going to heaven, that he gave me,
Right.
that gave me peace.
Right.
And it was a turning point for me at 7 years old, and it changed my life. And it was just so impactful. So, I mean, my faith has just always drawn me. I used to complain about people throwing me into the fire. Why don't people like me? I'm nice to everybody. Why are people so mean? Why is the media so mean? How come there's
Right.
no friends here? Why was high school so hard? And all this stuff, why did I try to fall in love, try to give love to people, and you get treated oppositely. And it's just pain and pain and pain and pain. And then I started saying to myself, every time I get thrown into the fire, I get bigger. I kind of feel like the Hulk. It's like you throw me in there,
Stronger.
and it just
Sure.
keep going, and
Sure.
you keep going.
Yeah.
And so now it's like I laugh when somebody throws me in the fire. I'm like, do you know the people that are in my corner? Do you know the God that loves me?
That's right.
Do you know
That's right.
that I have literally looked at the devil face to face and said, no, not today.
Right.
So, I mean, my faith is bonded to what I do. I do what I love, and I love what I do.
That's right.
Everything about me goes back to God.
Yep.
I always say, if you're going to give me anything, give me 0.0000001%. Give the rest to Him.
Yeah.
And I just have so much fun with Him. And even on my darkest day, my toughest day, my most confusing day, I always talk to Him about it. And I always say, like, I'm always like, yeah, this stinks and I don't get it, but like, I'm happy that we get to talk about it.
Exactly.
And I just, sometimes I need a swift kick in the pants, and He's always there for that. But He's also there to give me just this overwhelmingly, unceasingly divine push of positivity. And I don't always know how to, like, you don't know what to do, and then He just grabs you and He's like, you got this. And so, I mean, yeah, my faith has grown, it's blossomed, it's evolved, but it's always been a part of me. And yeah, my parents brought me to church, and my grandparents, and I went to Catholic schools. but there's a time where you just decide to love God.
You choose it. That's right.
And at 7 years old, when he showed me my grandfather's going to heaven, and he said, and Jesus and God the Father looked me in the face and said, "We weren't trying to hurt you." You know, and it's just like they're here with us, but we weren't trying to hurt you, and we love you. When that happened, when I saw them say, like, don't be mad, don't be upset, like, we love you to pieces and we want you to see them again, because I never got to say goodbye.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I've never thought of this before, but I feel like at 7 years old I just went, okay,
here we go.
I know you love me. I know you got my back. So.
Exactly. That's awesome. Yeah, it's very inspirational, and I think I always love to hear stories about God and how he does really show how much he loves us, and I think that's so hopeful. So again, it's the message of hope, and I want to be a part as often and as regular as I can, so it's all good.
So with that coming from Peter Schultz here, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, bringing you the light between us, and we're here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. This comes to you every single month and every Friday during our live broadcast of Wake Up Call at right around 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Fridays. We have Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver, brought to you by Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay. For Jimmer, for the entire team here, for Peter, for myself, Dan Tortora, and above all things, for the big guy that made this divine conversation happen. We love you, we appreciate you, and as I always say, and I don't say it if I don't mean it, God bless, no stress, do your best. And when I say I love you, it's because I want you to know you are highly favored, deeply blessed, and incredibly loved. We'll talk with you soon. Thanks,
Thank
Peter.
you very much. Very nice. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
it.